I am asking nearly the impossible because I have a house full of children here rocking with us, and I'm asking them to be quiet for about 10 minutes. And so let me see. I actually got about 30 that I could rock, but I'm going to see if they can be quiet for 10. And then when the music comes on, then they'll probably be all right. But for now, while we give them 10 good minutes, and then I'll jump into a little bit of the music review that I'm doing, I was looking in my archives, cleaning out that inbox, and found some video footage of underground conscious rap group. It's the red pillar and it's the blue pillar. So it was heck of a concert. I got that. I got to share it because it's like 279 megabytes. That video is huge, a huge file taking up a lot of room, and I don't have an external hard drive. So I want to share it here, make that available. But while I was looking for content that I could remove that is taking up space in that cloud, I remembered that there in February, where our black, I guess, pioneer in STEM at the highest level, I would say, had worked for NASA, Katherine Johnson, died there in February, and it didn't get a lot of coverage. And so it hit me as something to where I can at least open up while I have some quiet from the kids with that, because her innovation is the reason why we can do things like this today, which is monitor the spread of the coronavirus in real time, or as close to real time as reporting would allow, given the intricacies of all the systems that have to be reporting to somewhere. And these updates are critical information towards the CDC's expansion and contraction rate, as they are looking at a couple of key metrics. Total confirmed cases, 144,833. Total deaths, 5,398. Total recovered, around 70,234. Now, the one that stands out the most to me out of this information would be that total recovered, because it is, I guess, something that I have the most skepticism about. The ability to determine that the all is clear when examining the human body for foreign viruses, and that same level of microscopic vision to be able to see the world and the little dots that we are and where we are and essentially what we're doing. And so I've started here. I got a couple of note cards tracking the growth of, or the spread of, the coronavirus. And that began in 3/11, or March 11th, 2020. There was around 121,545 total confirmed cases, 121,545. And then there was around 4,374 deaths there on March the 11th, with 66,236 said to be totally recovered. Took that same information and I broke it down to see, well, what about those cases here in America? What do those numbers look like? And it was at that time around 1,050 total confirmed to be carrying the coronavirus. There had been 29 deaths, and they had said that there were 8 who had totally recovered. Now, again, I'm the most skeptical about that total recovered. The next day, at the beginning of the day I started it, it was 127,749 total confirmed, about 127,863 by the end of the day. And so taking that second one and then subtracting to see what the growth looks like, it was about 114 that they were able to get inside of their database as total confirmed. So 114 more. And as the testing kits started to expand in their ability to diagnose and I would say spread that database or that information off of whatever that blood sample or the virus sample, and be able to take the blood or do what they needed to do in order to find out if that person was carrying the coronavirus. As that expanded, so then did the number of total confirmed cases. And on that day, by the time I started work to the time I finished work, there was around an increase of more than 115 more confirmed cases. The deaths only increased by one that day, from 4,717 to 4,718. And the total recovered, well, it only increased by 3 people. I'm still skeptical on the recovered part, but rock with us. In America, there was around 1,323 total confirmed, which was an increase of around 300 cases. So we don't see the information on how many were tested, but we do see that the number that were actually confirmed was an increase of around 250 or more. The deaths did increase from 29 to 38 deaths related to the coronavirus, and then the number of recovered folks remained the same. So that was 312. And then, today is the 13th of March. Where we at on time? About 5 minutes. 137,000 total confirmed cases. So an increase of nearly 10,000. So as you get it out there in that testing kit and that data, that whatever it is that they put in their computer, and they share that information through the World Health Organization, and they distribute it to the world governments, and they distribute it to whatever type of health system that they might have, that information, and whatever laboratory needed access to that information, where they were running the blood or they kept it housed somewhere, and they were able to then submit that sample or that culture or whatever it was to that space where they can compare it to, and they were doing it in real time. And that was the number of cases. And that was the, St. John's? Johns Hopkins University. And their ability to track the growth and the spread of the coronavirus. 137,445 cases. Then by right now, 144,833 confirmed cases. And so as you see it grow from 3/11 or March 11th, from 121,000 to the number you see there today, 144,000, is the ability to identify 20,000 plus confirmed cases or carriers of the coronavirus. So with 20,000 confirmed plus carriers of the coronavirus, the question is then, what else? What else besides the confirmation? This total recovered, 70,234 as of today are said to be totally recovered. But what does that actually mean? The ability that was created to look at this world and some of that mathematics brought to you by Black pioneers and their inventions and their innovations and their scientific minds and their ideology and their belief systems that allowed them to work with the resources they had and create even that global view to get those rockets into the moon, or to get them in outer space, and thus the positioning of satellites and such. That contribution need not just be glossed over as, but now she's gone. It need not just have that one filmed right there on the campus of Morehouse College, Hidden Figures, to celebrate Katherine Johnson. And our ability to look and analyze. And to this day, I know they have the drones and different things that they can do, infrared scanning based on heat signatures and the radar and the planes that are in the sky, properly equipped with that advanced technology, albeit those patents are on the other side, but that brilliance to be able to do so, those capabilities, that's what we're working with Black Intellect. And so shout out to Katherine Johnson. And then I'm going to go into what we were here for, which is that music review of the underground, a good premise. But remember that major missile defense program that we can either invest in or choose not to is a part of our legacy as Buffalo Soldiers, or descendants of those Buffalo Soldiers who pushed west. And for those of us that know, we are expected to do, as well as the Northrop Grumman, that military division that equips us with the technologies we need to get to outer space, to make it cyber, and to use unmanned technology. So that is a B1 presentation. As we go into the information here, which is the actual sharing and review, this is what was recorded, the red pillar and the blue pillar prints.
This is the moment of Ultron. This is the agent of Ultron. This is the stage of Ultron. This is the stage we spoke on. Came on the scene, I was hopping down. All I was doing was common ground. 716, that's your common ground. For the legend of Copper Town. Definitely Jersey and Copper Ground. 20 on that to them Jefferson. Our pieces of crystal be talking, they be talking. Keep on the clothing, yeah, keep on the cooking. I'm Christopher walking, I'm Christopher walking. Listen, be talking, cooking the grammar, the broken in English. I'm 100%. 100. Like Prince, better than purple the best. Change up the circle of friends. Little circle of twins. 75 of the six. 75 of the Prince. Red and blue, purple like Prince. Purple like Prince. Red and blue, purple like Prince. Red and blue, purple like Prince. Red and blue, purple like Prince. Art is incredible. Art is incredible. Art is incredible. I'm on 100%. I like myself again. I need my 110. I need 100%. Going to play it like Prince. I'm on 100%. I need myself again. I need 110. I want 100%. I like myself again. Yeah. This next one, Jesus Wayne.
Man, that shit was hard, bro. Hard. And so can't just share it. Gotta let you know where you can actually find it. I think that was this one here.
70 wives in the Prince. Red and blue, purple like 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 Prince.
My actual favorite at the time, that was like 2018. But this was actually my favorite right here.
Look. From the city where the bums rich. Skyscrapers block the rays when the sun hits. One time coming, niggas run quick. By the time a baby walk, he got a gun grip. I was made for this. 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 I'm not a product of the cages that they raised us in. Bred to be a king, I'm not a slave to this. I was made for 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 this. I'm not a product of the cages that they raised us in. Bred to be a king, I'm not a slave to this.
They don't know fact from fiction. They don't know that blacks is missing. They don't know they trapped in prison. They don't know the path to prison was a math decision. They don't know the rap is quickened. They don't know the ass they kissing on the path of mission to put their ass in prison. They don't know black religion, fact and fiction. They don't know mama didn't leave them niggas half the kitchen with half a chicken. Fact and fiction. We still hot, we still noble. Red and blue pill global. No matter the language, we still moguls. We lost Gil Scott, then we lost Gil Noble. revolution will not be televised, it's being digitized. On the come up, it's like watching the midget rise. Sleeper giants grow another 20 feet tall with each alliance. I can see the science, I tear an instrumental down before I lay my pistol down. I'm going down to Tinseltown and burning temple down and cap it off like thistle crown. And my rights and reserve, fear of a black Illuminati. I might just build with the Bilderberg to come and kill you nerds. I'm shining like a Grammy host on the shores of Miami coast. I'm a regular plug looking like Sammy Sosa, the old one when he was well done like Randy Rose. The ancestors sponsor this. I don't know them niggas, all they do is talking conscious shit. We living it, we in the streets like House of Consciousness. ATL in the ATL, MIA, NYC. Multi-dimension like MIB. We are not the same, I am a sovereign. We are not the same, I am a problem.
I was made for this. 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 I'm not a product of the cages that they raised us in. Bred to be a king, I'm not a slave to this. I was made for 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 this. I'm not a product of the cages that they raised us in. Bred to be a king, I'm not a slave to this.
And when you deal with the definition of exorcist, as Brother A.A. said, is then dealing around magic, because it is through the word and the animation of the word through your voice and through the intonation of your voice that you cause the four elements, fire, air, water, and earth.
Let me give you one
The
more.
W-O-R-D. You are causing these particular elementals to no longer be just conscious as themselves, but through your word, become conscious of themselves. And that's when you begin to project magic. That's when you change your
Which one
reality.
was it though?
I went from living like monks, living out back of the trunk, to pockets of fat with the monks, pockets of fat like the club. Now I am living like Trump, now I am living like Trump. Mimosas and mimosas, mimosas and mimosas, mimosas and mimosas, the Morris Costa Nostra. Pulling up in Testarossa, we dodging the debt, discharging the debt, discharging the debt, we charging the jet. Swipers on deck, ciphers on deck, ciphers on deck, wipers on deck, wipers on deck. My life is on check, my life is on check, my life is on tubes, my life is a Jew, my life is on you. My wife is on two, my wife is on two. I'm going for 3.
All right, so that was the conscious music that I had found. Glad to be able to share it with them before I delete it. I have tagged them there in the description. Hopefully they get it and they can have it in their archives as well. They can snip it and cut it if the video was too long for their taste. I try to keep it less than 20 minutes. Also tried to add some educational content to it as well. Number one being that salute to Katherine Johnson, who just passed. It didn't get a lot of conversation, and so I did want to make sure we added that and add some significance. Also looking at what was relevant right here in this time stamp, which is the use of that type of technology, that type of mathematics. I know they deal heavy into mathematics, and so all of the symbolisms of recognizing and appreciating our ancestors, as well as linking what they've done to us today. I know that they could appreciate that. And then if you listen to this one and you heard some of that information that they were dropping in their bars and you thought that was pretty hot, then you can drop that fire sign in the comments. Pretty sure they would appreciate that as well. I went through the Facebook or the Instagram and the Twitter and the SoundCloud where their information can actually be located. And so hopefully you saw that on the screen. My impression, I definitely rocked with them. They're on a different conscious vibe, the mathematics, the science that they're putting into it. Some people are on that level of astronomy and history and all of those different information sets that they can bring into their conversation. And I thought they did a good job putting that over music. And so I appreciate that. And I also remember knocking that like time after time after time as well, that Prince, that Red and Blue Purple, like, man, I could probably do it bar for bar. But I wanted to just make sure I got the information out as it was recorded by those brothers. So salute to them, B1 salute. And that's my underground tribute for that hip hop faithful on a Good Friday. All right. So we are undetermined. We know what's going on in the world. We still got information and content to deliver on. Hope you enjoyed it. Katherine Johnson, shout out and salute. And then for those of y'all who are out there interacting and moving through the world and still concerned about that total recovered. The fact is, they can still be carriers of something that they thought was dead in them, but because they don't feel sick anymore, they're allowed to go back in the world, and that virus that they thought was dead in them can still be spread. And because it can still be spread, they're looking at it like, is it dead? Is it not dead? Well, how do you know unless you can get that microscopic vision to be able to zoom in through somebody's body and see a virus? And it's not just I feel hot. So checking the temperature, is there anywhere in the body that is causing my body to overheat? Because the blood cells and the immuno things, they're fighting back against this virus. That may not be the case. Is it one of those viruses that can play dead or lay dormant, but still be spread? And if the answer is yes, then it is a prolonged period of time that they would be looking at implementing any organizational changes to our economy or the structure of our economy. How have we seen that? We've seen that happen in spaces like transportation, with the flights being canceled from Europe and such. What else? That is a good one, right? Because mobility by air is important, but not just by plane, also by train. And so I don't know specifically if that train system has been stopped, but I do know that there were some subways or A trains or metros and things that were considered to be stopped. So the mobilization or the movement of people, these small cells in and throughout spaces, that is another area of transportation, but it's bigger than transportation. We know that it was banking. I showed one there for Italy, which is they're looking at that as being a pilot or a subsection. We're also looking at it from the lens of technology. And so with technology comes the H-1B visa, or a lot of people traveling, expatriates or foreign nationals from other spaces that do come and sell their services or their resources nation to nation. And because of that, that stop of mobility or the stop of those flights can then start to inhibit some of those technological advancements or even some of those services that those intelligent people were trying to provide to the world. And so because of that, you'll see other industries such as banking impacted by it. So I want to say it, the old domino theory used to be line these dominoes up with an incremental space around themselves. And if you push one, then you'll watch the dominoes fall. That is a domino theory. In the world we live in, it is a more matrix environment where you could push the domino here to have a ripple effect that hits something well over here. And because that is the case now, that domino theory is no longer a linear trajectory. It is spread out. And so you can have an impact, or a thing can have an impact in different networks. What does that mean for us as the human beings who are operating in these shared spaces and these communal spaces? Your impact may be that you, as the carrier, or that person who is the carrier of the coronavirus. Hey, excuse me. Go all the way upstairs with that noise. Appreciate it and thank you. So as the carrier, or whoever might be that carrier of that coronavirus, it might be dead to the person that they are interacting with at the grocery store. It might be dead and not spread to the person that they're or to the mechanics that they're interacting with at the fuel pump. It might even be dead, not just the cashier or not just the fuel pump that they touch, but they might not have even sneezed until they got closer to the grocery aisle, I guess. Let's use that as an example. And that's where they actually sneeze. Now, the information behind the coronavirus says that it can exist on surfaces like plastic or whatever. So while they are totally recovered, that does not mean that they are not able to no longer transmit it. So they can sneeze in that grocery aisle, and that virus that is a part of that sneeze, or being released from their body, or releasing itself from its host and searching for a new host somewhere else inside of our communal spaces, is sitting there in that grocery aisle waiting for, and the people could walk by. It could be a 24-year-old man walks by, and that smart virus did not choose that man. It did not choose that host, or it chose that host. Or imagine it being artificially intelligent to the point where it is selective and self-targeting. It is a living thing, that virus, and it has an intelligence to determine what is the best likelihood of its survival, what host. And so if we look at it from the lens of that way, if you empower the virus with intelligence and not just believe it to be some ignorant thing, then you can see how it can grow itself inside of the human population by 20,000 people in a matter of 3 days. It can grow itself and reproduce itself at a rate faster than your people are recovering from it. I gave you the data at the beginning of the stream, and I told you why that was important. I only have about 5 minutes left to really drive this point home. The lady that you see on the screen helped enable microscopic vision into the world and a bird's eye view of that world. And that same bird's eye view of the world is the one to which we rely on for our personal and family safety. And I want to give you one quick presentation at the end of this, just to make sure that we're driving that point home. So let's scroll to the top and understand genome testing by artificial intelligence. Computers are already operating on other computers or organisms in a matrix style environment. And so being able to take that biometric information and convert it into a population is not hard. It's just science. So if you look at the top image, you'll see the artificial intelligence that is empowering signals, or you just can call it AI. Those signals interconnected from computers and homes and shopping carts and in vehicles on the roads, from the equipment that we use to the factories that we work in, all the way through solar, a virus so smart that it can move through telecommunications. It's small, it's a bug. It can move through the energy in your wires. Biometric population scan drone being the only thing that can look far enough down to see from space. Now reverse engineer that from the lens of a virus. Starts with the eye, the ability to see, and that is not far-fetched. That seeing is a reflection of light, which is a reflection of energy, and therefore something that can feed on energy as a host and move itself. Now, I don't know if it's reproducing itself in the form of that energy, or if that energy, that light, is just its vessel to travel. Like they would say, it can travel in oxygen. It can travel on the O of oxygen. That's how small it is as a virus. It travels on the O of oxygen and also in saliva, which is the H. It can travel on hydrogen and oxygen. It can survive on hydrogen and it lives, but can it see? So what am I talking about? Well, the information that we typically receive is on the level of movies. That's how we process information in our social conditioning. There are the murder mysteries, there's conspiracy theories, which we can talk about ad nauseum, documentaries, science fiction, political thrillers. Definitely a fan of those. Right there in the middle, we can get caught up on the drama and the war films, because those are important. That is the death that we cause on each other. The historical pieces, which I definitely like to speak on in my spaces or in these 30-minute streams, maybe an hour. There's romance, which is very common genre that women digest information. And there's men now who love the romance sector. I ain't gonna lie. I just don't happen to favor it myself. And then there's comedy, which in my everyday interactions, I use satire and comedy in order to stay virtually sane. Because certain levels of intelligence have to be shared. We give you these examples. With live media, you can literally pick your topic and join in the discussion. That's the YouTube space. But in documented film or any of those genres, you have conversations at work, like what is the best comedy? What is your best sci-fi? Top 3 war films. What are your best political thrillers? Now, I think the movie Spartacus captures all of those spaces pretty good. But when I'm looking at the best comedy, it's probably going to be Harlem Nights for me. That takes it by hands down. That is one of the best comedies. And even Harlem Nights has multiple genres that it covers. Independence Day, I definitely love that when it comes to sci-fi and looking at outer space and the interplay between living organisms and things of that nature. And so when it comes to war, there's many that I could name. I think Independence Day again would fall there. The shootout in the street from Harlem Nights would fall as a part of that war, or the story or the recount that they put in there, or that war against Doc or whoever it was that they were fighting against there, and the police that they had. But Glory for me is the best war film. And then when it comes to political thrillers, there are many that I could name. Many people would say the most popular being Scandal, but for me, you know, I have to push the grounds and just say next conversation, genome testing on the population. What happened? The conscious community started talking about vaccines. Before then, there was this theory pushed by Bill Gates using computers to make an algorithm that quantifies the population of the world and the potential scenario of a pandemic. And that was recent. As I said, 2018, and I want to keep this relevant. From the top to the bottom, you still have that information about artificial intelligence. How are you able to quantify that data and know who's who? And then the systems that are needed to operate those machineries, that's sometimes what we insource or outsource to the Indians or the other Asians. To take a look at this information brought to you by intelligent minds like Katherine Johnson. But this genome testing is linking itself with the eugenic society still, or the continuation thereof. Population being population control, being able to monitor and engage the movements of those people in that society. And so I'm going to ask, what do Eagle Eye and Enemy of the State have in common? Not only do they capture all of those categories, those top 4 categories that I like, but when it comes to that eagle eye, it is like 24 times the vision of a man, that bird eye view and the intelligence that it's able to gather and process at that rate. That Eagle Eye and Enemy of the State also go into the Telecommunications Act of 1996, signed into law there in February, an act to promote competition and reduce regulation. That's the big part, was the reduction in regulation in order to secure lower prices and higher quality service for American telecommunications consumers. They try to make it seem like the consumption is what was most important, rather than the distribution methods of telecommunication services. That's what it was actually about. Bigger business, not just the people who want this information or will need this information in times of pandemic or global crisis. Not just those who need that data, and not just those who have had the brilliance to create the technologies to make this data available, but also to encourage the rapid deployment of new telecommunications technology. What I just gave you is the information that you need to know to understand these joint security operations systems as they look at the world and analyze the contents therein, contents being those people. Now, if we can do it, what makes you think a virus can't? So the Patriot Act being one of those major legislations that came thereafter as we make our way back towards where we are today. I read this one to you about the Telecommunications Act as the premise, but then that Patriot Act being the expansion of those said patriotic powers. What do Eagle Eye and Enemy of the State have in common? Well, it is both the Telecommunications Act, the ability to use that surveillance, and then the bigger business investment that makes that data available, and that data still being you. That U.S. Patriot Act, officially the Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct Terrorism Act. Now, when you look at this virus itself can be said to be the global terrorist, the virus, the coronavirus, this COVID, or covert, if you really want to break it down. COVID-19 itself is the virus. It is the terrorist. And someone would want to make it about the human being that created this intelligent being, or this artificial intelligence, or this light consuming source. I don't know if it consumes light, but we know that it is small enough to travel on a hydrogen and an oxygen, or a oxygen molecule. It's small enough to travel on and to exist on that, even after the air has moved on. The oxygen, I don't even know what it is. It's probably added itself to a carbon and landed there, and it's just chilling on top of the package of meat, plastic, in the grocery aisle, selectively waiting for its host to walk by. See, this Eagle Vision, this NASA, this Katherine Johnson, and this bird's eye vision, or how they can look through the windows of these skyscrapers and see the inhabitants therein and look at them from the lens of their heat index, and their heat signature being the thing that they are qualifying whether or not somebody is sick. And them using that same information and trying to say, well, this person is now totally recovered. Shalom. And I question it. And so I bring you the content from both them and its growth in a matter of 3 days, now surpassing more than 150 some odd thousand, and its ability to grow 20,000 in the matter of 3 days. I can't grow YouTube subscribers 20,000 in 3 days. These are actual humans, but itself has replicated itself time after time within host bodies. It is not something that just killed itself off. It is still something that is spreading or being found to be spread, found in us humans faster than the total recovery. Maybe that's just a matter of reporting. Are we even able to keep up with it? What are some of the sources of information that we rely on? Well, anime. From a child to grown up, there was those cartoons that stuck with us. There's also reality series. I love Survivor, and that has been canceled until further notice. The music, which is why we sometimes have to shed some light on those underground conscious rappers who can connect you with information like this more readily. I shared their Instagram and they're tagged in the description below. Sports and entertainment canceled. News reporting on one major topic from many different perspectives, which is this threat to mankind. Now, again, I like the action and I like the fantasy or that sci-fi. I prefer those, as well as some of the conspiracy theories and some of those bigger ones. And I wish I could have just a moment more to go into some of that, but I don't. I am going to throw to the next B1 Network stream, which is Nyla Says. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so. Let me see if I can bring it up on the screen here. Well, we'll be going from this one to have a continued conversation. Maybe you like this conversation, and so you hit the like button, but maybe you know somebody that does like this kind of political conversation, and so you share it with them. But in any event, thank you for sharing the information. Be sure to ask that person to subscribe so they get the notifications when Brother Moses goes live. Now, let me see here. I thought there was one from Nyla Says. I see the brother Ramil Amir has lack of rulership mentality, makes black men soft as fuck. I would not be joining that one because I don't care much for the perspective that denigrates the image of black men. And so the last thing that was recorded from the black man was black men ain't shit. That looks like the only other live stream in the black YouTube sector. Nope, Sonetta, which is shout out Sonetta, Sonetta Studios. There's about 385 watching. I can post that there then as the next takeaway video that we can move towards, and to shout out those who are still moving in these spaces. So again, Katherine Johnson, salute. Very fair-skinned woman, but nonetheless, that's ours. She's with us. Look at that COVID-19. I get you however you would like it. Oh, there it is. That's the one that I was looking for. So Nala Says, we'll be going here. If you're not familiar, be sure to like and subscribe and B1 salute. That's all I got for now. And